What's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy.
And I'm Clarus.
And this is a spoiler chat for Miss Marvel Episode 1 and 2 because we've been away.
Yeah.
We also get Nerdy Nightly.
And we thought we'd share it with you.
That is right. Miss Marvel has finally entered the MCU and is not like her comic, but is also like perfectly like her comic. It's very strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've had discussions about this because I don't know anything about the comic, really, except for what you've told me. And so I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I'm super into it. But I understand that they've definitely taken liberties with the character in a way that I have enjoyed. I think it's really great so far.
Yeah, I think we did a trailer reaction to one of the original trailers of Miss Marvel.
Yes.
And I was concerned about the idea of the bracers that she wears, giving her her powers and then being something that can be taken away from her.
Yeah.
In the show, obviously, we have seen the beat where him being her best friend, who is Matt Lintz as Bruno Corelli. I think he's doing a great job, but I really appreciated the scene where he's analyzing her with his magic technology because he's a genius.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the second episode. They're like, you got into Caltech. And I was like, I don't think that kid needs to go to college.
No, I think he's okay.
He built an Alexa. I think he can probably get a job now.
Yeah.
But he says, it's channeling the power out of you, but it's coming from you. And I'm happy about that. I'm happy that it is still an inherent power within Kamala.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that the bracer is like a means to get her to use her power, but eventually the end of season 1 will be that she loses it and thinks that she's not Miss Marvel anymore.
Yeah.
Or Nightlight, as they're calling her on the show, which I think is very funny.
Yeah.
But that it will actually be the beat will be that she reveals that the power is inside her. Yeah. And she can do it whether she has the bracelet or not.
Yeah, I agree. That was, I think, the biggest thing that we chatted about in that reaction. Because it was like, well, yeah, do we really need that story of person finds an object gives them powers, and then it's taken away, right?
It's the story they just did in Shang-Chi, right?
Yeah.
And so it was, they're not the same Asian culture, but I was like, is Marvel's Asian culture story going to continuously be a bracelet that gives you superpowers?
Yes. No, they're very different.
Yeah, I'm glad there's an inherent difference between the understanding of Shang-Chi's powers and Kamala's powers.
Yeah. The show is so fun so far.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think that what they've nailed about the comics is that she is a young girl who's a huge fan of the Avengers who gets superpowers.
Yeah.
And yes, the powers are different, and yes, she is not an Inhuman, and yes, it's not Terrigen Mist, and there are those things, which I am not prickly about anymore. But
anymore.
I was briefly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff about Kamala that I love from the comics that won't happen in the show.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because I've seen the show and I know that what they've nailed is the vibe. It is the best cinematography of any Marvel show.
Yeah.
It is creative, the way they're using graffiti and art to tell this story about this girl and what's going on in her head and how she pushes her fantasies out into the world, and then her powers push her literal fantasies out into the world in the same way.
Yes.
I'm really enjoying that dichotomy, or not dichotomy, but that parallel between the visual style of the show and the powers that they've given Kamala.
Yeah. I before this, it was definitely, I thought WandaVision was the most creative. And I still do think WandaVision is very creative, but this is different and more, and it seems like they're happy to take risks with this that they might not have with other things, especially in terms of the visuals and how they get cool shots. They're really here to kind of push boundaries with what they can do. And I love seeing that. I think that out of that kind of challenge, challenging yourself, comes really, really great art.
100%.
And that's what I think this is, I think that Miss Marvel so far is very artistic and creative. I love Kamala. I love that, yes, it does feel like the teenage girl in high school vibe, but that they're doing something more with that. I always watch, whenever there's a show and there's a teenage girl in high school, I always look at it and I'm like, high school's not like that. It's so exaggerated in a lot of different ways.
Which part of this?
Well, the
because I think that her high school experience, it has been very realistic for the most part, other than obviously her superpowers, but like
it just the way that everything's like over dramatized, like the people in front of her locker who like don't move when she's like, that's my locker and stuff like that, and they're like always there every morning, and then she's like, get out of the way, like she like actually like has them move over, like it's just things like that where I'm like, it's dramatic for television and I get that. There's a lot of the like high school tropes that aren't really real.
I don't know. I think what I really enjoy about the high school environment that some of these scenes are taking place in is that she has a group of friends who seem like they're just genuinely friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Her relationship with Zoe is antagonistic, but not overly so.
Mm-hmm.
Like she is jealous of Zoe, and Zoe is a little bit aloof, and but not mean.
Yeah.
Like Zoe isn't callous. You know, they haven't taken the popular girl to the extreme of like, and she's also terrible. She's just like, she used to be their friend, kind of isn't their friend anymore, but like if they run into her in the hallway, she says like, nice necklace, and they kind of move on awkwardly from it, right?
Yeah.
Like I appreciate that they're not doing the like, this group hates this group who hates this group, and none of us can get along, and there are strict lines. It's just kind of, it's a little bit more casual than that, and a little bit more real world to me.
And that's what I think that the characters have been developed really well. Like the actual people who have like names and goals and hopes and dreams kind of thing, right? Because like I was really worried that Zoe, when in episode 2 they like interrogate her, I thought that like that I thought we were gonna get that classic like mean girl trope in that scene, and she's legitimately like concerned and worried, doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't try to purposefully give away this person, but like I guess like makes a face, and so they are like, oh, South Asian.
Well, yeah, 'cause she's a kid. Like she's never been interrogated by the Department of Damage Control before.
I guess
it would be a very intimidating experience for a 17-year-old.
I guess my other like weird part about that scene is like, how does Zoe know that she's South Asian?
Well, she seems to go to a school in an area that is very South Asian. Like her school has a lot of people.
But it's a cosplay contest for all of New York, right?
Oh, sure, yeah,
it's like the Avenger Con.
But I'm saying that like she is inches away from Miss Marvel's face for that whole scene where she's asking if she does parties and whatnot. Like she met her. It's not like she saw her from across a room. They were inches away from one another.
I guess I just like, I would never, like I have never looked at a person whose face is half covered and be like, they're from India, or they're from Pakistan, or they're definitely from China, or they're definitely Korean. You know what I mean? Like I've never, man, maybe that's just me. I have never really been able to like clearly define the exact features that come from different parts of the world. Like, if I were to look at the actress who plays Kamala, even without half the face mask, I would say, sure, South Asian, maybe potentially like indigenous. Like I don't know the like exact features that qualify as South Asian, and it was just like weird to me that Zoe like knew exactly what Kamala's background was.
I don't think it's that weird.
I was like, wait, how did you know? Like I was like,
I don't know. I didn't rub up against that the way that you did.
It just stuck out to me because I like, and maybe it is just me that like I wouldn't be able to tell. But I was like, Zoe, how the hell would you know that? Are you a little bit
face blind?
No, I don't think so. I remember people's faces better than I remember people's names.
Okay.
I've just like never like looked at a person and been like, ah, yes, German. You know, like.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I've looked at some people and been, no, Germans have a look.
Okay, I guess Germans have a, I don't, like,
Like, you've never, like, looked at someone and been like, oh, that guy's Danish.
No.
Really?
No.
This has nothing to do with the show. This is just fascinating to me that you're like, I can't tell people apart.
I can tell people apart. I just don't know where the hell they're from.
I feel like this is the most you have ever felt like, oh, I'm from Calgary.
I grew up around white people. And even white people all look the same to me. Like, I don't. That's what I mean. I'm like, German, sure, if you say so. Like,
but like you can like look at an Italian person and like you're like that's an Italian. Like
Well,
there's an Italian look.
I would look at an Italian person. I'd be like, you kind of look like you could be Italian or potentially Greek or like.
What is this video?
Okay, all right.
You dated a Greek
on.
man for 5 years.
Yeah, and they kind of also look Italian. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I literally, like, I don't know what you want from me.
This is the weirdest conversation we've ever gone down. Yeah.
Anyways, that was the one thing about the show where I was like, that was odd.
That was the one thing.
Everything else, great so far.
The one thing
Fantastic.
for me is Zoe getting picked up by Thor's hammer. Like
Well,
I think the sequence is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't when she gets swung up the first time, it makes sense, right? But when the hammer turns around and she's still holding on somehow,
I know.
I was just kind of like, what is she holding on to?
I don't know.
I didn't.
It was silly so much in a way I thought it was gonna be a weird dream.
Yeah, you said that while we were watching it.
But then it wasn't, and I was like, okay.
I didn't mind it. Like ultimately, like
fine.
it's the Marvel universe. I've bought into weirder stuff. It was just it was the only thing that was shot in a way that I was like, I don't understand what happened. But then I do, but I like it because it led to Kamala using her like obviously in the comics it's called embiggening, and she embiggens her body, and she embiggened to catch Zoe.
Yeah.
And it's her first time using her powers, and this is very different than the comics, and I understand why they changed it. I really like the first time she uses her powers in the comics. You probably don't know this, but the first time Kamala uses her powers in the comics, she changes because she can shapeshift, because she can make her body bigger and she can change physically. She shapeshifts literally into Captain Marvel. So she is literally a tall white woman superhero. And it's important because she learns that she doesn't have that doesn't have to be the look of a superhero.
Yeah.
And I like the beat from the comic. I understand why they didn't do that in the show. Like, I get it.
They didn't have the budget for Brie Larson.
I don't think it's that. I think the creators probably didn't want to tell the story in the same way. They wanted to do something new with the character, and I like what they did with this first use of her powers.
Yeah.
I also like that she gets back to her room. She has this whole plan to, like, sneak out, and she doesn't get back in time. She gets back to her room, and her mom is like, do you want to be this cosmic girl, or do you want to be a good girl? And the shot of her lying down, another great, like, swinging crane shot to follow her down. And then she's looking at her hand and goes cosmic. And I appreciated that they didn't they didn't backtrack on any of that. Like she fights with her mom, but she doesn't acquiesce completely to her mom in that moment.
Yes. I do love the relationship with her family. You know, like her mom has certain like views that obviously like I'm kind of like but also I get it, like she's trying to like protect her daughter, and her you know, same with like her dad is so like silly, and like Kamala's embarrassed, and like they just feel very real, like a real family. Like I said, not stereotypical, which is kind of a breath of fresh air, especially when it comes to like stuff about teenagers.
Yeah,
you know, like that can get so tropey. But yeah, the relationship with her brother.
Yeah.
And when she's on that date with what's his name?
Kamran.
Yes, Kamran. When she's on the date, this is my cousin. To her brother.
Which is a weird.
Why would you do that?
Just say it's a friend from school. Like you're working on a project. I feel like there's so many lies. I would never insinuate that I'm related to someone that I'm on a date with. Ever. Even as a joke.
Yeah.
It just, you can't.
Yeah, I was like,
strange.
It's an interesting choice.
But also to say that it is our cousin. Like, what a strong choice to be like, it's our cousin, a person you've met.
Yeah.
And Amir's like, oh, you're so big. And I was like, God damn, dude.
Yeah. His fiance.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
I really like her.
Wonderful. She doesn't do a lot in the first 2 episodes. Yet. But she's fantastic.
The look she gives Kamala at the end of that scene was just fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, God. 10 out of 10.
So, yeah, we have 2 episodes so far. No real villain yet. Obviously, Damage Control is going to be an antagonist to Kamala, but not really a villain. Like, I can't see her fighting Damage Control. Her trying to avoid them, I absolutely see, right?
Yeah.
Damage Control being the group that was created by Tony Stark after the attack in New York. We first saw them in Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Homecoming. They're the group that comes in and kicks the Vulture off of the work site at the beginning of that movie, which causes him to become a villain.
Oh, yeah. Right, that's them.
So Damage Control now is clearly bringing in Soups. Don't know what for, which I think is what's interesting about the show is this is the first time we've seen Damage Control be an organization other than like cleaning up after superheroes and messes. And so I do wonder because Kamala hasn't done anything wrong.
No.
She just has powers. And I find it interesting in the second episode, the like almost overreaction to her. They don't just send someone to go talk to her. They send like many drones and a bunch of people with guns. And like all Kamala has done at that point is like catch a falling girl on video.
No, and save the little kid.
They've already dispatched the team though to like bring her in when she saved the kid.
When that is happening.
But all she did in that situation was save the kid. She didn't put that kid in any danger. So I just feel like the amount of guns that get pointed at her at the end of the episode is a little outsized in reaction to what she has done.
Yes.
And I wonder if it's just Damage Control. You never know with superpowers. They always go in so hard. But I feel like they could have like talked to her.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to try and bring in someone who has powers that you don't understand, like the guy literally is looking at the video and be like, we've never seen that before. Maybe don't go in guns blazing and cause a problem.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a terrible strategy. I would have been like, hey, we don't want to fight you. We just want to like know what's up. We would like to talk.
Yeah.
And they don't do that. They come in with like, they come in all black, tactical gear, attack drones, guns. And I was just kind of like, this is a terrible strategy.
Yeah, I don't really know why they're there. I don't know why Kamran and his mom showed up. Because at first I was like, wait, Kamran is actually related to her? Because he was like, this is my mom. And it was a girl from one of like Kamala's kind of like flashback vision things. And I was like, is that Kamala's grandmother? But
I don't think it is. I don't think Kamala sees her grandmother in the visions. Because her grandmother's still alive.
Or her great-grandmother, I guess, is the one that disappeared, right?
I think it's her great-aunt. Great-great-aunt? I don't know. I think we'll get answers on Wednesday.
Great. I would like that. Thank you. Because I was like, oh, wait, they are related? And then I was
I don't think they're like biological. Or they're related and they will not date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cosplay stuff was very fun.
Yeah, what did you think of Avenger Con?
First of all, it's like tiny.
I don't know. It was bigger than the YetiCon we were just at.
Well, that's because YetiCon was like all outside, right?
Yeah.
It felt like they were just kind of
like a small con.
It felt like they were at a really tiny like carnival more than a con.
The darkness was what gave it the carnival vibes.
It was like the darkness with the like flashing
music.
Lights and games and music. Yeah, it felt like a carnival, and I was like, okay.
It felt a little bit like sensory overload.
Yeah.
And like I love conventions. We've been to 4 or 5 this year. I don't even know. I love going to conventions. It wasn't really a con. And what I found so interesting is that like Marvel knows what a con looks like.
They sure do.
And that isn't it.
Yeah, and it was also one of those things where like Kamala asked to go, and her mom's like, "Are you asking to go to a party?" And I was like, "Why doesn't she just go at 1 PM?"
Yeah, like why is it at night?
Yeah.
What convention is at night?
It was like they went to the after party of the con.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like. I was like, "Oh, that's."
But like most con floors close at 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
that's what I mean. Like her mom was like very, very concerned.
Well, and it's
about like going to a party.
But it's so strange that there's a few things about the con that are strange to me. One, Marvel knows that the people watching Miss Marvel probably go to conventions.
Yep.
And so everyone watching the show, or not everyone, but a lot of people watching the show are going to look at that and go, "What is this?" Like, it felt like an Avengers party. Like, it felt, and that would have been fine if they'd called it that. But the fact that they called it Avenger Con was just very strange.
Yeah.
And number 2, her mom is like, you're not going out there wearing skin tight suit. But in that scene,
like
Kamala's wearing a tank top. And then the Captain Marvel suit is a leather jacket.
Yeah.
That is zipped up all the way and a helmet. Like, the only part of Kamala Khan that's showing in the costume is her
Some
hands,
and
which
face.
are like literally her fingertips,
Yeah.
her chin, and her eyeballs.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Kamala, just show your mom the suit you're wearing. It's not.
Show her the cosplay. Yeah. Like, I was like, I don't see how
I
that
found
could
it
be.
so strange.
Yeah.
And then her mom shows up with the Hulk outfit. And I was looking at the Hulk outfit and I was like, I think that more of Kamala's skin will be showing in the Hulk outfit than in the Captain Marvel suit. I just found whole part of the storyline very confusing.
Yeah.
I really wanted, when she snuck back in, I wanted her mom to be like, oh, that's your Captain Marvel suit? Oh, you should have told us. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I freaked out about. But
also, yeah, it was so late at night. That
it was
like,
so late.
Why? What is happening here?
Yeah, it was very strange. And I was hoping the con would have some jokes about like the typical like sellers and people who are at cons, but it seemed almost like it was like put on by a high school.
It was their like weird after prom kind of thing.
No, but it was like their bake sale for like their like basketball team. But it was just like Avengers things.
Themed,
and
yeah.
also a lot of the Avengers themed jokes were moments that happened in the movies. Like the one joke that I found so weird is that there's an America's ass joke with Captain America's butt, but the only people who were there for that moment were Captain America and Captain America, one of whom doesn't exist because the timeline was erased, and the other it went back in time with the Infinity Stones. I was like, who did Steve
He
tell
talked about
somebody?
it in an interview.
Well, but did Steve come back to the present, sit down with Scott, and be like, I had the best quip when I was fighting myself in the past. And then Scott told that, like, I was looking at the America's ass joke and I was like, how do they know about this?
Yeah.
And like, I know that we know
That one
about
was
it.
just for the audience.
Yeah, but that made it a little bit strange.
Yes, yeah.
Because it made me have to sit there and be like, wait a second.
How did everyone find out about, like, is this a common... Okay.
And I really like the joke at the beginning of the episode where Scott Lang is talking about how where she's talking about how she learns all this stuff because of Scott Lang's podcast interviews.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant, and I want them to release those. I want them to just get Paul Rudd to sit down and like describe the battle of Endgame on like a podcast episode that they release. I think it would be so funny, and I think Paul Rudd would be down to do it.
Yeah, that would be very fun.
Yeah, I did find that joke, a couple of those jokes strange, where I was like, no one was there.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like in Loki, in the first episode of Loki, when they're making Loki like watch his life.
Yes.
And they show the spin around shot of the Avengers from Avengers 1.
The same shot.
And it was like, does the TVA have access to the movies?
The movies, yeah.
Do they have the 4K Blu-ray of the Avengers?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was very fun. Yeah, the con was strange. It was fun.
It was very strange. It was fun.
I wasn't like mad about it. It was just a little strange.
But also, they make a big deal out of the cosplay contest, and that she's gonna win the cosplay contest. And it didn't feel like there was a winner.
A contest or a winner, yeah.
Like, I wish they had shown
standing on the stage. It like here's the thing. Everyone got up on the stage and lined up, and then Kamala walked out and stood center front with the spotlight on her, and I was like,
I think they're trying to set up that everyone else in line has already done that, and that she's the last one to arrive.
yeah, but there was like 25 people there. There's no way.
The structure of that scene was of the whole con, honestly, was a little strange.
Yeah.
And it was to like get through it to the beat where she saves Zoe and then runs away, and I get all of that, but yeah, it was weird. It was a little weird. I enjoyed it because I like Kamala and Bruno's relationship so much. I feel like I keep switching between Kamala and Kamala, and because I think it's Kamala Khan. But then it's Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, and I'm having I like, my brain won't choose a pronunciation in this episode.
No, yeah, you're right, you're right, no.
Yeah. Also, the moment where Kamala leaps out of her bedroom window, grabs onto a branch, and then falls 2 stories onto her back.
And then just gets up.
And
I was like,
fine.
wow,
That was my way back in. I was like, what do you mean? It was a branch 2 stories off the ground.
Yeah,
how could that possibly have been your way in?
Could not tell you.
Also, it would have been bad at 9:22 if you'd been climbing the tree and the branch gave way under you. Like, this was never a good strategy.
I do love, though, that, like, she makes plans like I do.
On a giant chalkboard in not chronological order?
No. Just, like, very chaotic and not planning for anything like that might go wrong or contingencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is very much me. Like everything will go exactly correct.
Yes, and then it doesn't.
And then it never does.
But I freeze framed on that chalkboard, and it drove me a little bit crazy that it was all out of order. And then when Bruno's like, so your plan is to take the bus? I was like, no, her plan is nonsense.
Yeah.
Her plan is literally not in order. I want to talk about Nakia, because my favorite character in the show barely is in the first episode, but is in a lot of the second episode, and it is Kamala's. I'm gonna get that right eventually. Kamala's best friend, who isn't Bruno. Her best lady friend, Nakia, who in the second episode is running to be on the board of the mosque.
Yep.
And
Amazing.
I love her so much.
Yeah.
She's literally my favorite part of this whole show so far.
That scene with her and
Abu,
Kamala's dad.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to deprive two young women of their future, would you? I almost died.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and honestly, like I love. I love how much Muslim representation is on the show, and there's a lot of it I don't understand. Yeah. And I love that I'm getting a lens on that. It doesn't feel like a show that was written by white people about another culture.
Yeah.
In a way that sometimes American television does. I'm looking at you, basically everything made before now.
Yeah.
But I'm really appreciating I'm appreciating the way that culture is being shown and handled, and that Nakia is representing this version of it. This girl who grew up maybe a little bit less strict, but then chose to don the hijab and chose some of the strictness of the culture that she's raised in for herself, and has found within that a freedom to really be the girl that she wants to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a story I've heard before in real life, and I don't think I've ever really seen in media.
No,
and I'm loving the way this actually is playing it.
Yeah, she's fantastic. How they're going about everything so far has been fantastic. Really interesting to see, and like you said, there's things in this that I do not understand, and that's great. Like I'm like, cool, yeah, I love it. Like I don't need to feel like I'm in the know for everything, or that I can relate to everything, because I have not lived every life out there that there is to live. There are so many people out there who have a different lived experience than I do, and I have a glimpse of it through art and through something creative and also informative, which I love.
Yeah, I just think I'm happy that, because it's 5 years ago, I think that this show would have had her be Muslim but gloss over it and not and just like not really talk about it. It wouldn't have been front and center. And I mean, like, there's a whole scene in the second episode about like the state of the mosque that they go to, not that they live in, but that is their local mosque. And I think that this is when people talk about like representation mattering, this is that kind of good representation where it's not just like brown people on screen, but actual like discussion of cultures that aren't a typical American nuclear family. And I think that the show's doing such an amazing job of that. I think that it is also taking an unnecessary amount of criticism online for doing that in those people who would rather not see this on their screen, but feel like they need to watch every superhero thing. And I'm just kind of like, if you don't want to watch it, just I mean, you should, because you'll become a better person by accepting people who don't look the same as you. But don't or don't talk about it. Like, yeah,
go back and watch Fox News.
But like, and that's I think in comparison to some of the other shows on right now, that is a smaller group of people. Granted, fewer people are watching the show, unfortunately, because it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that the show is wonderful, and I think that the part of the reason why it's so wonderful is because it is so much about the culture of the characters it's representing. And while I do hope we get more of an understanding of how the superheroics play into the plot, because right now I almost feel like the superheroics of Kamala are secondary to her life. Yeah. Which is fine, and I'm honestly down for a show like that.
Down for it, yeah. I kind of like it. I think that, 2 episodes in, I think that it's about to be very... Well, actually, I don't know, because this power and this bracelet, this seems to be very much tied into her past, her ancestors, like, and her family that we haven't even met yet. So... I actually don't know. I'm kind of cool with it keeping on like this. I know it's a superhero show, but like, I think that all the people in this are just doing a really good job, and I'm super excited to see like what their lives are. Like I don't know.
It's a coming of age story.
Mm-hmm.
We're a third of the way through it. And I don't want the conflict to be that Bruno is butthurt that she has a boyfriend.
Me neither.
You know what I mean? And so I want there to be I want there to be something that she can overcome that isn't necessarily the family dynamic. I think the finale will probably take place at her brother's wedding, and there's gonna be super heroics around her brother's wedding, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But I'm hopeful for that other conflict, because I don't want like the teenage, like I don't want it to fall into a stereotypical teenage girl conflict.
No.
That feels like it does a disservice to the fact that she has powers and that she's like blossoming into this hero. You know what I mean?
It takes away from like, you know, it makes the like interesting part about her be the guy that she's choosing or not choosing, and I honestly don't give a crap. Like I want to know about her family and her powers and who she is as a person without that.
I'm not gonna. I was kind of hoping that her and Bruno's relationship was gonna stay platonic. I didn't like the scene in the car with Kamran. It's funny, but it's also just a little bit like it was the one thing in this show that I felt like I had seen before.
Oh yes.
And obviously with different dialogue, I did appreciate that it was about Bruno not really being able to fully understand the culture that Kamran and Kamala come from.
Yeah.
If Kamran actually comes from that culture, I have no idea at this point, right?
Well, yeah, he seems like he could potentially be a little bit of a really shady, or maybe a villain, or like.
I don't know, because like
I don't know.
His mom is in Kamala's visions.
Yes, very suspicious.
You know,
they're all very suspicious, but I think we're about to have some stuff unveiled this week.
Oh, for sure, and I hope so. I'm hopeful for the conflict of the show, because right now, like there isn't really a major conflict.
No major conflict. It is the more like daily like teenage struggles,
which I would be fine with if the show was longer.
Yeah.
But there's only 4 episodes left.
Yes.
Like at the end of next week, we will be halfway through. Mm-hmm. And so that's the only these 6 episode structured shows are a little bit strange, because I almost feel like they always ramp up too slowly.
Yeah.
And this is a show that's ramping up very slowly. Mm-hmm. And at the halfway point in the story, we're either going to have to be on a really high or a really low to kind of like build to a climax from there, right? Mm-hmm. The fall to a climax or the rise to a climax. And so I'm curious what they're going to do in 1 week to kind of get the story to a point where it can kind of start heading towards a conclusion.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't the first episodes, as much as I love them, and I think they're so fantastically shot and so beautifully realized, and the acting is incredible. I think Aman Vellani is a literal star. I love her so much on screen.
Yeah.
And the rest of the cast is awesome. Her brother is so good. That actor's hilarious. Abu is just amazing.
Yeah.
I do kind of feel like the first 2 episodes have started off a little bit slow to really get to build in only 4 left.
Yeah, episode 3 needs to be pivotal in some way, because it's like by the end of it, there has to be something at that halfway point, yes, to make this a story worth telling. You know, like like this is what we want to. We need to know exactly what the message of the show is. Mm-hmm. So I think this week. Exactly the story that they want to tell. And if it is just, you know, Kamala's family and life, then fine. But I think right now it's just, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that it's going to be interesting to talk about the show once it's over. And to, like, see whether or not it felt like the first episodes did enough to set up that end point. But we'll see. Yeah. There's nothing we can talk about that now.
But Wednesday,
I don't know. Obi-Wan will come first on Wednesday. I'm so sorry, but it's Obi-Wan.
It's the finale as well.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I feel bad for Kamala. I feel like they did her a disservice by launching her against Obi-Wan. If it was a different Star Wars show, like if you launched Andor and Kamala at the same and Mrs. Marvel at the same time, I think you wouldn't have that as much. But you were launching a brand new Marvel character with no legacy characters, no hype built around like going into it other than that it's starting against the episode. I don't want to spoil Star Wars for anyone who hasn't seen the 4th episode of Obi-Wan, but the 4th episode of Obi-Wan followed one of the most like intense things in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so like you had this launch on a day where it was very hard to imagine the hype going towards Miss Marvel.
Yes.
When so much was focused on this show that is the most talked about thing, the #1 Disney Plus show of all time. Yes. And I think they did a disservice to Kamala Khan by not giving her at least the first episode its own day.
Yeah. I think that from what I've seen anyway, a lot of the discourse around Miss Marvel has been very positive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are very happy.
That's a 95 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, a lot of people are very
From
happy
critics.
with it. And so, you know, even if not a lot of people picked it up the day that it dropped, I am hopeful that once Obi-Wan is over this week, that next week people will go back and maybe catch up and start watching this because it's really worth it so far.
Well, and I also think like it debuted a week after Stranger Things 4 came out.
Yeah.
Which is a very similar demographic in terms of that like younger.
Yeah.
Stranger Things is a very much a younger female-driven audience that they do very well with. And so it's just, it feels almost like Kamala Khan is a great show coming out maybe at the wrong time to get the numbers it deserves.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's nothing in this show that shouldn't be watched. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a slow start. That's like the closest thing I have to a criticism is the first episodes don't do a crazy amount.
Yeah,
but they're
I
awesome.
thoroughly enjoyed them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see where the show goes. I am really. It's also tough it's also tough with these shows because there's no season 2. This show is leading into a movie that's already been shot. You know what I mean? So there's no metric to judge it by because it came out, and then the movie's gonna come out, and like, do the numbers even matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
do they honestly?
Do they matter? It's so tough in this world of streaming to know like, if people watch this or don't watch this, the Marvels is still going to come out. Yeah. Iman Vellani is still going to be Miss Marvel in the MCU for the foreseeable future. Yeah. Like, it is strange in that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Oh well.
But I'm glad it's good.
Yeah.
If you like this video, like and subscribe to the channel. If you don't, that's fine. We understand. Hit the dislike button. Leave mean comments down below because the algorithm god is hungry and we must feed her. You can also follow us around the internet. I am at Nerdy Nightly.
I am at Kamalas Powers.
And as always, y'all, do something nerdy tonight, maybe?
Bye?
Bye.